am on. Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. I today have Kait back on, and she was on episode 205 where she actually cut the shit, and that was what a lot of people loved about it. She was just raw and to the point, and something that I continue to see on a daily basis, and it's something that I struggle myself to try to balance in the way that I approach my girls, is giving a little bit of that, yeah, it's okay, that support, that compassion, to be like, yeah, this always happens. But then on the other end, we do need some tough love, and we don't give it to ourselves enough. Like, how long are you going to let the same thing happen over and over again? How many mornings are you going to click snooze on the alarm? How many mornings are you going to say, nah, I'm going to leave my workout for later and never actually get to it? How many days are you going to say, I'll just try again tomorrow, or nah, it's just how I am? And then when you actually ask the deep questions, if you're willing to sit with them, which I have a few girls only that are, which, as Kait said before this, you need to challenge your beliefs, which I'm going to let her talk about very soon. But things that come across as, I don't want to feel cringy, I don't want to look like a failure, I don't want to disappoint myself. And it's like, but aren't you already failing because you're not happy with where you are? Because if you're scared of failure, you wouldn't be repeating the same shit that makes you feel like a failure right now. So honestly, you're not scared of failure. So why are your fears based on other people and not yourself? And what is cringy? Isn't you doing the same shit over and over again cringy? So it's not until you challenge those beliefs you have that you realize that they're kind of nonsensical and that there's something deeper going on there. So with that, I'm going to let Kait take it away with her amazing, raw, to the point.
What is going on, guys? I'm happy to be back. And there's actually something that you said, and right away I want to challenge, and that is the idea of failure in general. I think it's looked at very negatively. We tend to associate things with positive or negative, and I think that's where most people go wrong, is we're categorizing or labeling it. Failure is not a negative thing. Failure shows you where you have a current deficit in your skill set or your knowledge base, your experience, whatever it might be. And so when you reframe it to look at it as, oh my gosh, this is really insightful. What an incredible opportunity for me to get better at something. And instead of looking at it like, oh, I failed, so I should quit, I think that comes from your belief, and it's a fixed mindset belief that the skill sets or the knowledge or the talent that you carry currently is the only talent that you have, and therefore you want to shine and be validated in the eyes of other people. And by your ability to do that, you stay in what you're comfortable in or you've been told you're good at, right? And so a lot of people will pursue those things and only those things. And if indeed they walk into a classroom that is, say, trigonometry, they're typically the kids that will sit in the back because they don't know what's going on and they don't want to sit in the front and be called on, or they don't raise their hand because they don't take the opportunity to learn. And it's because you're afraid to look stupid. When I would argue that you're going to look stupid on the exam because you were afraid to ask questions during class time. And so it's one of those things where you can invest in doing the things that make you slightly uncomfortable, that might show your skill set, knowledge base, or experience deficits. But once you can acknowledge that you have them, you know exactly where you can improve. And I think that life really is a journey of finding out all that it is you could possibly be, not staying in what it is you are naturally talented at. Because even if you are naturally talented, someone that has a work ethic and an open mind and a growth-oriented headspace is going to beat you. And I can say that as a testament in my own life. I'm 5'3.5" on my best days, and I walked on to a Division I institution and stole a starting position, not because I was better, not because I'm more talented, not because I had a better skill set, not because I'm the tallest person on the floor, but because instead of relying on my talent, I decided to acknowledge and address and improve my deficits and work my fucking ass off in order to be ready for the opportunity. And I think a lot of people see the outcome of somebody else achieving something that they want to achieve, and they make up in their brain, it's because they're this. It's because they have this. It's because they're related to this person. It's because they're in this environment. And it's very easy to make up those things when you know nothing about the person other than they have what you want. And the difference is between them and you is that they are willing to do things that you aren't willing to do. And that's uncomfortable to sit with and acknowledge that you are so afraid and you live your life by other people's opinions or validation, and you don't give a shit about what it is you actually want to do or try because you fear their judgment over your success.
I love that. And that same thought process is where I see a lot of people scared to vocalize their goals, scared to vocalize what they're doing or want to do, their intentions. And the worst of all is that people are they're so easy to talk about how much they're struggling, where they're going wrong, all the things they're going to fail at, all the things they can't do, all the things they will fail at, but they won't celebrate at the same volume their wins. They won't celebrate at the same volume something that they actually did maybe twice, maybe even once, that they couldn't get themselves to do before. Because what if I fail? What if I can't keep this going?
I honestly I would even challenge the idea that it's not necessarily that. I think on the other side of it is that they're focusing on the wrong variable. It's not that it's not the fact that they refuse to acknowledge that they've made minor adjustments in maybe their habits or beliefs, or even practicing taking action to try to build a habit that they haven't exactly laid a solid concrete foundation on just yet. But it's the fact that they might have done it for 3 days and they expect to be 15 pounds down, right? That they went to the gym and they're sore and they expect their body composition to look different. And I think it's because, again, people focus on the wrong variables. I have this happen in check-ins with new clients very often, right? We'll see, I track a lot of their data and their trends, and we'll see that their strength is going up, right? Their waist measurements are going down. They're feeling better. Their energy is better. Their clothes fit differently, but the scale didn't move. And they're focused on, what do I need to do? I need to work harder. Why is the scale not moving? You're missing it. You're missing the improvements that you made, the major variables that you should be focused on versus the one thing that's going to drive you fucking batshit crazy, because it's never going to move the way that you want it to, because it's not actually the most important variable you should be focused on. But diet culture and maybe other coaches or people that you listen to might only focus on the scale, and you're conditioned to believe that you are only seeing progress or doing the right things if that scale moves in the direction in which you want it to. And so I think a lot of that, again, is challenging and breaking beliefs around what people think is success. Because if your definition of success is only on a scale weight, for example, well, then don't be upset when you diet yourself to death and lose your lean body mass. You take off your shirt and you still feel insecure because you don't have any muscle and because you've run it away. I mean, you just have to weigh the pros and the cons of what it is that you want. But I also genuinely believe in manifestation. And if you speak negative things over yourself, you will manifest that in your life. If you say, I can't do these things are hard, and therefore I'm not doing them, I am incapable, well, I'm telling you, you're going to stay exactly where you are, because you're building that belief in your actions. And so your actions are going to follow suit with that belief. And therefore you're not stepping into the person you say that you want to become, or achieving the goals, or moving even in the right direction, because you already have this belief that is limiting, and therefore you're not taking action the way that you need to. And so it's very, very important that you are very attentive to the way that you speak over yourself and the conversations that you have in your head, because if you can't acknowledge that those conversations are happening, you're not going to be able to change the dialogue. And if you don't change the dialogue, I'm sorry, but if you don't believe in you, why would you expect anybody else to? We've gotten into this generation where it's soft and we wait for people to give us handouts, because we sit here and we cry about how our childhood or our upbringing or our situation or our context is much more difficult than the next person, when you know nothing about the next person that you're pointing the finger at. It's just one of those things where you are the one thing that is genuinely holding you back. And until you can reframe and actually believe that you can achieve anything you want, because I promise you, there's nothing different between you and myself, other than I believe that I can do anything I fucking want to do.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I put a video into the inner circle the other day, and the comments on it, only 3 people were vocal enough to comment on it, but they're like, wow, she's so strong. Wow, she's so fierce. And it was someone...
Me?
No, it was a video. You know Sue from Physique Development.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put up a video of where she said that, like, fear of actually showing up and vocalizing things, and it's because of the fear of failure, and people are just like, oh wow, she's so strong. It's like, you can be too, but you need to take ownership of it. Like, you need to do the things, and it's not something you can just physically manifest. It's something you need to do internally first. Whereas a lot of us try to just do the thing without trying to make ourselves internally believe it because we don't stop. We don't allow ourselves to pause. And I had this conversation with someone yesterday about something completely different, to the point where she never allowed herself to recognize her emotions. Every time she checked in, it was, I stuck to my plan. I did this. I didn't do this. I didn't get these days in. I have to do this. Oh, I'm going to try to do this to stick to the plan. I'm like, this isn't even about the food. You have macros if you can't stick to the plan. Like, you have all these variables, but you're trying to be so perfect with this, you don't realize that it's deeper under the surface. And then flash forward 3 weeks later, I sent her something from Jared Hamilton on the mindset of everything. And then she's like, holy shit, I never realized that I don't actually acknowledge my emotions. And I'm like, yeah, and this is what I've been saying for the past God knows how long. Why do you feel like you didn't take it in then? Do you feel like it's because you have been pacing yourself too fast, trying to do all of the things all of the time? And she replied saying, yeah, I never actually slow down. So it's like we don't allow ourselves to see the things that we need to see in order to acknowledge the things that are holding us back. And that's where we stay stuck in the fixed mindset.
I think it's that, but I find it very, very interesting how quickly people are to judge other people, right? At a glimpse, and tell themselves a story about that person and why that person is that way. And I say that because most people don't have any idea who the fuck they are. They can't sit alone and figure out what is it like. For example, like, there's so many things going on, at least in my country, right? And it's very polarizing. And on that level, it's also aligned with the idea and the fact, actually, that people believe things that they've never actually investigated. Somebody told them, they decided that they trusted this person because they speak with such conviction and character and charisma that whatever they're saying must be true. And if it is indeed true and you accept it as truth, and it is a belief that you have that you've never even challenged. And so it comes down to the same things when it comes to self-awareness. Most people get into the fact that they can't be alone. Maybe they're into drugs, maybe they're into sex, maybe they're into alcohol, maybe they're partying all the time, right? There's something, and people do this, maybe it's food, right? People tend to, or exercise, people tend to cope and distract themselves because it's a lot easier to engage in something stimulating that takes your mind off of the internal turmoil that you have, instead of sitting with that and going, I feel this way about this. I should challenge that and find out what the truth is, right? But we're so quick to just accept, right? This is why diet culture is the way that it is. You see it on a magazine, you see somebody hot and they did this thing, and somebody's marketing for that. Little do you know they got an endorsement deal or a fat paycheck to say that thing, and you believe it. And it's like, did you challenge that at all? Was there any investigation on your side? Do you have any sense of personal responsibility and ownership over the things that are happening in your life, the things that you indulge in, the things that you engage in, the things that you believe, the things that you say? Or are you just on autopilot, living in this box of other people's expectations? And then it comes down to, again, the idea of failure, or what it's like to step out and actually find out what you can do and investigate the things that you're passionate about, or to challenge yourself in a different way. And it's all because you fear the beliefs that other people have about you more than you care what you actually think about yourself.
Yeah, and that stops us from actually taking a step back sometimes. And this goes back to the conversation we had before I clicked record, where someone was placing all of their progress markers on where they stand in comparison to the people they see online, which I already got her to do a massive social media detox on, like, unfollowing all these people. But it's around her. She goes to some powerlifting gym from a trainer who thinks he knows it all, and there shouldn't be a leg extension gym in the gym because leg extensions are stupid. Like, it's our environment is powerful, but it's also, where do you put your metrics of success, and what does progress mean to you? Because if actual, like, it's like that example I said, where if 80 kilos on a deadlift is your bottleneck and you can't get past that 80 kilos, yeah, you can bring it back and then bring it back up again. But if your weak link is the weakness in your upper back, and you just keep repeating the same deadlift pattern, but you don't do anything to actually focus on the upper back and regress it there, because you don't want to look like a failure because now you're lifting with 40 kilos, not 80 kilos. Like, that shit is going to hold you back. And same with when you get, like, tempo training, if you need to do tempo, but that means I need to regress like 20 kilos down. Now I'm going to look weak and I'm not going to feel strong. Like, your perception of success, what is it even based on? Is it based on you? Is it based on where you want to go? Do you, like you said, do you even know what you want? Do you even, like, what does strength mean to you? Why is it that you place all of these metrics of who you are, what you can be, what you can't be, your success, your lack of success, on where you stand in terms of other people's eyes. But then if you want to relate this to food, because I wanted to touch on something you said, I messaged someone who commented on my post just to see what she meant about something. And then she's just like, food is always emotional for me, but then I do really good and I like to make better choices. But what did she say? Oh, yeah. But then sometimes I go back to unhealthy habits, especially when skinny is no longer my goal. I don't know what to do because I know what I'm doing works. I've done it before. And I'm like, if you've done it before and you went back to where you are now, it didn't work. Have you ever thought that maybe there's emotions tied to those habits, to those foods? And then she's like, holy shit, you made some really good points. I need to sit with this. I have never thought that there might be memories and emotions attached to food. And that's something we see attached to everything. So maybe you can expand on that.
So there's one thing that you said, and I was like, oh shit, I need a pen. So I actually just tweeted it. But one of the things that you said, you were talking about your deadlift, right? And in principle, right? It's really like, do you want to optimize the functionality of what you're doing? Do you want to progress and improve? Or do you want to focus on the validation of other people and your ego? And I think that you have to weigh those things when you're making any decision and looking at it objectively, right? Most people, when it comes to fitness, the vanity of it, improving their body composition or their image, they do it for their ego and not for themselves. And I think that if your goal is vanity and validation that is external, then please go lift like a fucking asshole. Like, do that thing for yourself. Make a YouTube, whatever. But if you actually want to see what you can accomplish and make progress and step into the person that you are capable of becoming out of self-love, not out of self-hate or insecurity, then you need to focus on setting a solid foundation and improving, which means sometimes you might have to take a step back to focus on an element that you are weak, a skill set that you don't have, a muscle group that you haven't developed, right? A movement pattern that you haven't mastered, in order for you to actually be able to overload and progress and overreach your previous progress point and your sticking point. But you can't do that unless you can have that hard conversation with, yeah, I am rounding right there. My lower back is quite compromised. I do actually have an anterior pelvic tilt and I need to work on that. Or my depth in my squat and my hip mobility sucks. So I need to regress and actually incorporate some mobility work, right? There's different things that are going to allow you to improve, but you can't do that if you can't acknowledge where your deficits lie. So that's what I would say on that point. And there was something else about food you mentioned. So remind me what that was.
When she was saying that she tries to make healthy choices and she knows that her goal isn't skinny anymore, but she keeps going back into her old habits and stuff. And why not just replace it with a shake and run my face off to burn calories? And then she talked about like pizza, bacon, cheeseburgers. And I said, well, haven't you ever thought that there's emotions tied to this? Like there's an emotional reason you're eating. It's not just because of the fact, like, and then she realized there were memories attached to it and she needs to sit on it, but she never realized there were emotions around that food. She never stopped.
So I think there's a lot in that to unplug, right? It's like the overeating and then compensation was the first thing you kind of mentioned, right? And it's an old habit that she might have. Is that what you suggested?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, like challenging my clients, and I do challenge my clients, and I do it because I love them and I know what they're capable of and I know what they deserve, what type of life they deserve to live. And it's not one that is focused on what they're going to eat or focusing on the foods they can't have or worrying about what the scale is going to say tomorrow or feeling comfortable and confident and sexy in a bathing suit or their wedding dress, right? And so with a client like that, I would just say, if that's what you've done, and you got to where you reached out to me and you wanted to change, do you think that if you continue to engage in those activities, that the outcome of the situation is going to change? No, it won't. And so it's like, I need you to trust me. And I know that this is blind trust, but I need you to trust me that I do have your best interest at heart. And in order for us to get you to where you want to be, you're going to have to commit to this process, right? Because you cannot possibly know what you're capable of achieving when you refuse to commit to finding out. And you cannot fully find out if you are half stepping your commitment. I don't mean I'm kind of interested. I'll do it when I feel like it. I mean, no, I'm doing this regardless of how fucking uncomfortable it is, because I promised myself that I would. And if I'm going to operate my life within the lines of integrity, then I need to keep the promises I make to myself. And I made this promise to myself, and I will do the thing regardless of how uncomfortable it is. Because you can either focus on getting results as fast as humanly possible and not sustaining them, and then doing it again and again and again and again for years. Or you can say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it one last fucking time. And so maybe it's longer than 12 weeks that you've done before, or 4 weeks, or whatever starvation thing you've done to yourself before. Maybe it's longer than that. But what if you never have to do it again? So the last decade, maybe more so, whether you've done these different diets, Herbalife, Shakeology, fucking the other isogenics, whatever it is that you've tried, right? What if you could get that time back, or just not waste that same amount of time trying to do the same fucking thing and commit to doing it right one time and live the rest of your life the way that you want to? Not worried about food, not binging on burgers, not being afraid of the emotional thing and experience that Christmas, Thanksgiving, and holidays are. Not worrying about your vacation to Aruba, where you have an all expenses thing paid for you and your fiance, but you can go and be present and have fun and not track one fucking thing and not have to worry about coming back with your weight up or gaining 15 pounds because you went on a bender because you don't understand how to work that shit in, and it's stuff that you actually enjoy, right? That's how transformation happens. That's what it takes, a real commitment. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient. And I promise you, if you're one of those people that's like, well, life's stressful right now, I promise you, any good coach is going to be able to work with you through that, because life's fucking always stressful. It's not going to stop. Holidays come every year. So does your anniversary and your birthday, right? And so it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't do this. Yeah, you can. And you will when it gets to the point where your health is on the line, because then you have no choice but to invest in it. And I really would encourage you to be proactive about that shit, so you don't have to lay in a hospital bed wondering or wishing, damn, I wish I had taken advantage of this a lot earlier in my life. I wouldn't be here right now. My grandkids, I get to see them grow up. That's the shit that I think about. It's like, I don't give a fuck what I weigh. As long as I'm healthy, I'm optimal, I feel good in my skin, and I can eat the foods that I enjoy and not have to restrict or restrain myself, or always be thinking about food, always be looking at somebody else's plate, feeling like I can't have that. I can't take a bite of a fucking piece of steak or salmon because it's high in fat. Like, that stuff is stupid. And I really don't like the fear mongering around any of that stuff, because it's not real. And some of you listening to me, this is going to make sense, because you're going to sit there and go, yeah, you're right. I don't eat anything that's high in fat because I'm afraid of it. I don't eat when I go out to eat or I just order a salad and bring my chicken in a snack pack bag. Who the fuck wants to live like that forever? Nobody. And you don't have to. You shouldn't.
And that's also where you need to get really clear on where your expectations and commitment lie, because if you're going to do the whole let's have a bit of this and a bit of that and eat out every weekend, you're never going to get to where you want to be. It's about knowing that as long as you do what you need to do for most of the time, which is actually a lot more flexible than you think it is, you will actually be able to enjoy the moments that matter the most. And it's not about being 100%. There is no such thing. And putting that pressure on yourself actually makes you more 20% than anything else. But if you know that you're always going to be between 80 to 90%, you make it so much easier for yourself. And committing means 100% mentally as well, because you can physically commit to something but not mentally be there. And you will never actually get the results that you want because you're mentally still on a diet. And like Kate said, you won't worry, like your whole definition of enjoying yourself won't be a friggin' feast of every single thing on the table once you actually realize the way that it goes, because you'll realize that you don't need to restrict every other day in your life.
Do you want to know the coolest thing? When you can go out to eat and you can go to Thanksgiving and Christmas and you don't have to finish the plate, because you realize anytime you go out to eat, you can get the same fucking thing, right? Most people fixate on food because they constantly restrict it. Most people fixate on Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and Valentine's Day and whatever the fuck other holiday they want to make an excuse for, because they are constantly outside of that event, that bender that they decide to take, they are restricting like a motherfucker. Where if it's like, if you just give yourself permission to say, hey, this is not really about the food. Food is an experience. This is one thing that we do to have connections with people in relationships. But when I go out to eat, I'm not sitting here going, oh, I'm going to get the burger and the fries and I want sweet potato fries. And then I got to eat the whole thing because I can't take it home and I can't have it tomorrow, right? When you work with that psychology, of course, Of course you're going to gain weight trying to be flexible, because you're taught the entire time that you got to restrict because you can't have this food because it's bad. If you eat a lot of it, you're going to gain a fuck ton of weight. But if you actually understand macros, nutrition, you put in the time to learn the education, you practice restraint, you get to the body composition you want, and you have a good coach who can teach you how to then operate with flexibility and keep you on track. If you can do that, over time, you will walk away with the ability to go to different events and not make it about the fucking food, because it's not about the food. You're making it about the food because the lifestyle that you have chosen is one of restriction, and aggressive restriction, I'd probably add. And you have beliefs around food that it is therefore good or bad in any situation. And if you're going to go do something and it requires you to eat bad food, then you are not on track and you must eat all of it. That is self-sabotaging behavior, and that is not real.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing that holds people back in that mindset is, why haven't I mastered it already? Why aren't we working on this already? Why aren't I more flexible? Like, people aren't patient enough. They think they give the issue 10 years, 5 years, whatever. But you expect to solve the issue in a week, in a month, in 12 weeks. It doesn't work that way. And if you keep putting so much pressure on this timeline of when you're supposed to solve your problems, you're never actually going to solve them, because you're not really trying to focus on solving them. You're just focusing on, when is this going to get done? When am I going to check this box? When am I going to be able to do this and this and this? And something you said, which reminded me of something which I put in my stories yesterday and also linked back to your thing. So, like, it was my mom's birthday yesterday, and she's like, where do you want to go? I'm like, I don't really care. I would rather just go to this charcoal chicken place, because I like getting, like, my favorite thing is getting like 450 grams worth of just plain charcoal chicken. It's my favorite thing ever. But it's like, when I had a conversation with someone else about going, or like, for a little mini holiday, they were talking about all these different food places that we can go to and enjoy food. I'm like, I honestly don't give a shit. Like, food is just food. I don't experience life through food. There is so much more to my experiences than just food. Like, yeah, cool, there's some yum foods, but if I make food the center of the event, or what's in Texas that I can eat, or what's bloody good food, what's in Italy that I can eat, it's like, of course you're going to be fixating your mind on, oh my god, this is the city of tacos, this is the city of pasta, this is the city of hot dogs, whatever it is. But that, like, the more that you realize that this is all part of the process. If you're in a fat loss phase, you need to make more sacrifices. And maybe you don't go on a fat loss phase when you're meant to be on a holiday and a vacation where you're meant to enjoy yourself. It's about being realistic. But people think that they need to be in a fat loss phase their whole life. Oh, keto worked for me. Carbs don't work for me. I need to stay this restricted, because as soon as I start to add more food in, I start to feel bloated in my clothes. I start to feel too puffy. Like, all of these fixed mindset beliefs, I guess you can call it that. But all of that stuff stops you from actually progressing forward, because you're basing that feeling around past predicaments.
So I think there's a couple things, because I do want to, like, I promise you guys, I'm not an asshole. I shoot it straight because I care, and I want you guys to understand what's possible. But I also have a lot of empathy for people that live their lives like this, because, you know, one thing that you mentioned is like setting realistic timelines. And yeah, that's true. But it's very difficult when you don't know anything about fat loss, when you don't know anything about fitness, and you're reading blogs and you're listening to people on different social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. And they're telling you that they can sell your dream in 12 weeks. And so I empathize with that, because I understand that you are just trying to get to where you want to be, and someone's selling you on a quick fix. And of course, if you can get to your dream body in 12 weeks, who wouldn't want to do that? And maybe you can, with a very restrictive and aggressive diet, but I will also tell you that the odds that you can sustain something using an unsustainable approach is like less than 10%. And so I just wanted to say that, because I do think it's important that whoever you work with at any given point in your timeline, they're honest with you and you're asking questions about realistic expectations with their program. And I think that if you can align yourself with someone who genuinely gives a fuck about helping you, and hopefully they have good character and intent, they'll be honest with you about what it actually takes. And maybe it means that you lose, half a pound to a pound a week is great progress for most people. So if they say we can get you up to 12 pounds in 12 weeks, if you really comply, well, that's possible. But that's also with the expectation that you execute 100% or you are obese. And so if people can break down the reality of what you're getting yourself into, at least that will help you with understanding what the long-term process actually looks like to get to the point of flexibility, like I said, where you don't have to worry about tracking or bringing your food scale or going out to eat, and you have the knowledge and understanding on how to do that and how you should be eating. And how you should be eating to sustain your goals is going to look different than myself. It's going to look different than Ruby. It's going to look different than anybody else that you see, because your body, your goals, and what it takes for you to sustain those goals is going to require a little bit of a different approach depending on the person, their lifestyle, their all of the different things, especially what your metabolism has been through. And so I just wanted to say that because I don't want you to feel like people are yelling at you, and I definitely don't want to come across that way. But it's because I'm incredibly passionate about helping people understand what it actually takes to change. And it's not easy, and it can be uncomfortable. And also acknowledging that your past failures or investments did fail you and they didn't serve you. And that's also hard to be like, damn, I tried that, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. Like, I keep doing things, something's just fucking wrong with me. And I get that. I get that feeling. I totally can relate to those emotions, but they're not real. I promise you, you're not broken. I promise you that you are not stuck where you are forever. I think that it just takes someone who genuinely wants to invest in you, and you wanting to genuinely invest in you and take the step that is going to have a lot of resistance and a lot of discomfort, because it is new and it will take a longer period of time if real long-term change is what you really want. So that was the first point that I wanted to touch on that you said. And then the other one is about food being an experience. Because I'm not a huge foodie. I love soft serve ice cream or froyo or something like that. But I do also understand that food for a lot of people is an experience, right? There are a lot of religious holidays or just cultures that surround themselves with food. And so I get that sometimes being able to indulge in those things is important for some people. And I don't want to sound like, oh, it's not important. For some people it is. And so I can't necessarily 100% relate, but what I will say about that is it's not about what you do 5 to 10% of the time. It's about what you do 90% of the time. And so even if you consider every holiday during the year something that you might overindulge in by 500 to 1,000 calories that day, like let's say you do that, what percentage of your year is that actually if you're on track 90% of the time? I can promise you it's negligible to your body composition and the results that you achieve. And so, no, I'm not saying have benders, because I do not encourage that whatsoever. But I am saying that if you are not perfect 10% of your year, that's not going to be detrimental to your progress. That is not going to be detrimental to the goals that you have. That is not going to fuck you up forever. And so when you look at it that way, as long as you don't quit on yourself, you can never fail. You will fuck this up, especially if you're learning to do it the right way, right? For the long term, you're going to fuck it up. So give yourself permission to learn. Acknowledge the deficits and the knowledge and the skill sets that you don't have yet. Validate your previous failures. It's okay. You've existed in the human experience. And the fact of the matter is, you didn't know then what you know now about that, or you wouldn't have done it. And so give yourself permission to know that you took the step to try to do the right thing to get to where you want to be. And that one endeavor or 10 endeavors, they didn't serve you. Right. And so you've learned 10 ways not to do it. Great. You know what not to do. Now let's learn what you should do. And let somebody who cares about you help navigate that road with you, so that you're not doing it alone and you're not frustrated and you're not fucking yourself up.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't actually allow yourself to acknowledge those failures, you're never going to move forward, because you're going to live in shame of that, and you're going to live in the fear of making them over and over again instead of actually learning from them. And this is why when you mentioned the basketball thing, I related that to when I was running a lot, which what I loved about that is how easy it was for me to think of concepts, think of analogies, think of ways to talk about things. And something that stuck with me is when you look at valleys and troughs, like, of course, the peaks are always going to look amazing. But when you see the pit, like the little troughs and the valleys, if you actually focus on those as potential for more success, because your weaknesses are your potential, if you ignore them, you're not allowing yourself to grow, because your strengths can only strengthen that much. It's like that law of diminishing returns. But something else you said, people fixate more on those 5% things, those 10% things. It's like all of a sudden their diet is the most important thing in the world when it's Christmas. All of a sudden, going to exercise is the most important thing that's going to happen around Christmas, but they don't put as much care and focus and intention into the rest of the year. But you can enjoy those things. Like, just because Christmas time, food isn't meant to be an experience. Well, yeah, you can actually experience Christmas, but your meaning of experience isn't going to be eating every single freaking thing on the platter because you feel so deprived the other parts of the year because you've been ketoing your whole life. Like, once you actually zoom the fuck out and realize that this is more than just, like, I hate scale numbers because people tend to put their whole metric of success just on a scale number. Like, oh, you should lose this much every single week. But then that is your only metric of success. And if you think that, if you don't realize that the journey is never linear, and then sometimes it will go up a shitload. Sometimes life happens and it's never going to move. But if all you're focused on is how that scale is moving, you will fail to acknowledge the fact that you're about to get a divorce or whatever the hell is going on in your life. And all you come to your coach with is everything fixated on my food was like this. This was like this. Oh, I forgot to mention the fact that I just drank alcohol the whole weekend because I was avoiding the feelings of the fact that my marriage is going to shit. Like, we tend to, like you mentioned at the very start, we tend to not actually realize everything else that's going on because we are so fixated on living up to a certain expectation that isn't really our own because we aren't slowing down. But then something I saw the other day was someone comparing every single week's photos. And I'm like, you're putting out the image to a normal person that they're supposed to see massive changes week to week, because that's the way that a normal person, as in someone that's not like comp prepping or whatever it is, someone that doesn't know anything like about the way that it should go. Oh, I'm actually meant to be seeing changes week to week. If I don't see changes week to week, I'm a failure, which is something I used to see a lot. But people don't really care about sustainability either at the start. There was a post in a group which I got so pissed off at, where a woman lost so much weight, and if she did it the right way, that's a different story, but she said how gruesome it was, how much she was training, what her diet was like, how a trainer smashes her and all this stuff, and people still wanted her trainer's number. People still wanted her to message them. And I'm like, what the hell? She's saying how bloody brutal it is, and people still want those results.
And I totally get that. I mean, I've been subject to seeing people that I looked up to on Instagram and being like, well, it worked for her, I must just do that thing, right? And then I think that you have to come to a place where two things. This is an interesting psychology, and I do find psychology incredibly interesting. If you guys follow me at all, you know that I've kind of mastered a lot of different things with the areas of nutrition and training, and I'm really passionate about kind of developing an entire human. And so psychology is really important. But when you look at people, right? If I were to tell you that that woman, let's say that you looked at her and you're like, wow, I want those things, right? And someone tells you, well, you can't, you will never look like that. Do you want to know the first thought that pops in people's heads? It's not possible for me, so why even try? Notice they didn't say that you couldn't lose weight or you couldn't make progress. They just said you will never be that person, which is true. But that's not what you heard. And so it's very interesting when people make statements. It's not what they said that offends you, it's what you heard. Because what you're hearing is that's not possible for me. When they're saying you can never be that person. So what I like to challenge people with when they're like, oh, well, why even try if I can't look like that? Why are you doubting that you could look better than that? Why do you not believe that your outcome of your transformation could not be better than that? Why do you not believe that you're capable of achieving something just as great, if not greater? It's just not you looking exactly like them. It's you looking as you could possibly look, the best that you could possibly look. And it's very interesting to me that people always cater towards the negative in their brain, right? It's like, well, I will obviously never be, Kobe Bryant was my favorite basketball player. But I was still, in the end, significantly greater than I ever thought that I would be at the game. But it took me actually committing every day when it was hard and I didn't want to and I wasn't motivated and I was tired to finding out what I was capable of. And I think that's...
Say to that part really quickly, the Kobe Bryant part. But the thing is, you never tried to skip the process. you never tried to skip the process of the person that you were becoming and the passion behind it. And
That's because I wasn't fixated on the outcome. I didn't know what I could be. So I went into it just going, I'm going to find out. I just am going to commit and find out. And if, like I've said this oftentimes, and I mean it, like in life, when I commit to something, I commit. And it's because I don't want to look back and go, I half-stepped that effort. What if I could have been great? No, I want to find out if I can be great, and I don't have time to waste. And so if I'm going to find out, I can live with hearing, Kate, you gave it your all, and it just wasn't enough. I might have gotten to, a B, and I needed to be an A player. And if I gave my best and a B was all I could get, that was my ceiling, at least I found out that a B was all I could get. I committed to finding out instead of going, hey, well, back in my day, I could have been this. If I really tried, I'd be that guy. Who wants to say they could have been that guy instead of being that guy? Literally no one, right? If everybody could be that guy, if everybody could be Kobe Bryant, if everybody could be Michael Jordan, if everybody could be those people, and yes, I'm a basketball fanatic, so I'm talking about some of the greats, but like whatever your passion is, think of somebody that you think is great. Like, if everybody could be that, they would. And so it's like, don't doubt that there's a difference between you and the person that you aspire to be like, except for the fact that they took a chance and they committed to finding out what they could become and you haven't yet. That doesn't mean you can never, by the way. You're one decision away. And people say this all the time, and it sounds cliche, but I do believe it's true, is that you are one decision away, one commitment away from changing your fucking life. You have so much power. And it's very interesting to me that people give that away willingly. Willingly. It's like, I see this all the time when you talk to women, I'm sure on sales calls or whatever it might be. It's like, oh yeah, I really want to do this. Oh yeah, I really want to do this. I got to talk to my husband. Is your husband living in your body? Does your husband prioritize your health? Does your husband control everything you do? Right? What if it's, instead of asking for permission and giving them your power, what if it's like, hey babe, I did this thing and I really love your support because it means a lot to me. Well, which one sounds more powerful?
people fear that.
But it's just so interesting to me. And it doesn't matter. Like, it could be anything people give their power away to. They go out to eat and they're afraid to order with no butter, no oil because they're watching their dietary fat. I'm afraid of what they'll think of me. I couldn't tell the waiter, I couldn't tell the people at the table that I'm trying to diet. What an inconvenience I would be. What? What do you mean? You're paying for the food. Have it ordered the way that you want to order it. If you're taking your health seriously and you're committed to you, because you love you and you want to improve you and find out all that you can be, then order the fucking food the way that you need to order it. It's not that big of a deal, but we make these things up in our head and we amplify the gravity of what it might feel like to do or say something that is important to us. It's silly. And I say this all the time, and I don't mean this in any type of derogatory manner. But you cannot be a slave to two masters. You cannot live your life for yourself and people. You either live for you or you die to the things that other people want you to be, because if you let people tell you what box to fit in, they will. Every time. Every single time. Life is about leverage. If people can leverage you, they will.
And that doesn't mean that you don't love them any less. It actually means that you love them more. And that's what I wanted to touch on with the husband as well. It's, yeah, but how's your relationship? How's your sex life? How's all of these things that your lack of confidence, your lack of putting yourself first is holding you back from? Which then leads into the fact that you don't show up as your best self. You don't dress up in the clothes that you want to dress up in because you feel like a potato sack. And in your there was the basketball thing I wanted to touch on quickly. And if that whole time you were focused on external validation, which ties into the whole conversation we had before on, if I didn't take myself back to learning the little drills. Oh, okay, so this is my weakness. I need to practice this a lot more. Oh, but that means I can't show my skills off on the game court because I'm trying to hone in on this skill. Like, I know nothing about basketball, so I'm just making shit up. But if that's what you needed to do to get better at the game on the floor, but you didn't do that because you just wanted to show up and hold face and try to hold yourself up to Kobe Bryant status, which you never actually got to in the end because you were your best, not his best. But hey, you failed because you weren't Kobe Bryant and that's who you wanted to be. Like, that shit, it's not even about the fact that you're not doing this for you anymore. It's about the fact that you were miserable in the whole freaking process because your whole meaning of happiness is as soon as I get to Kobe Bryant, as soon as other people validate me. But now I can't be validated because I can't be the best that I can be and actually be proud of the best that I am striving to become because I'm holding myself back by not doing the drills that I need to do to get to that place.
So I think There's a lot in that. So like
Are
for
you
me,
okay?
I think that I think that when you focus on a goal, you will always be unfulfilled once you achieve it. And I think that we need to reframe the idea of goal setting. I think that instead of having a goal by this day, like I'm going to get married, but how many people feel like they're failing in life because they say, I'm going to be married by 25, I'm going to have kids by 28, and I'm going to make X amount of money by the time I'm 30. And what happens when you don't do that? You categorize and label yourself as a failure because these expectations and these deadlines you set on yourself for when to accomplish these goals makes you feel like because you didn't achieve those goals by that timeline, you are therefore failing at life. And that's not real. That is not real. That is a pressure that you believe. That is a belief that you have that is not real. And now, if that's a belief that you have and that you carry that is not real, I can guarantee you have hundreds of other beliefs about what you should be, when you're supposed to be that, the things that you're supposed to achieve, the timeline you're supposed to achieve them in. And those are not real. They're not fucking real. And so when it comes to basketball, because I love to talk about it, I walked into a gym. I moved by myself to North Carolina. I worked at Dave & Buster's 80 hours a week, and I slept in the employee break room, and I would train with kids anywhere from high school all the way to college, like seniors. And you want to know what happened when I first started training with high school kids? I got my fucking ass beat when I was in college. Got my ass beat. These high schoolers had handles. I was talented, yes. I was strong with my left, weak as fuck with my right, and I got my ass beat every day by a bunch of high school kids. Every day in and day out, day in and day out for months. But I did not stop showing up because I saw that I was getting a little bit better every day. A little bit better every day. And I enjoyed the fact that I was getting better every day. And it got to the point where then I was competing against girls from NC State and UNC and Duke and UNC Greensboro and Wake Forest, and we'd all play pickup. And you know what? I was giving them buckets, and I had handles, and they couldn't guard me. But it didn't happen the first day I walked in the gym. I had to go through eating shit for a long period of time and still show up because I loved seeing myself get better. I enjoyed seeing getting my ass beat by these kids. But more than that, I enjoyed seeing myself get better. And I was like, wow, I think I can do this. I'm getting better every day. And I did not have a deadline or expectation. I didn't know what I could do. It's like, okay, well, it would be unreasonable for me to walk into a gym when I'm doing very innovative skill training that I've never done before and be excellent at it. Like, those are such unreal expectations. It's like picking up a basketball, choosing to dribble, and thinking I'm going to be Allen Iverson. Like, those things don't match. And if I were to say that to you, you'd think I was crazy, and you'd be like, dude, we need to set some realistic expectations. But you assume that after a week you should lose 10 pounds. You should assume that the first time that you try to deadlift, and you never deadlift before, that you have great form and mobility, right? You assume these things about you, and then you decide that if you are short of that expectation, you are therefore a failure, and you just can't do it. That's not real. That is not real. And so if you carry those beliefs about yourself and what you're capable of accomplishing, I encourage you to remind yourself that it would be unreasonable, no matter what arena of your life you're in, that you would walk in the door and be excellent at something you've never done before. It would be unreasonable. It's like me getting a painting or what is it, an easel, a thingy where you paint pictures, right? And I think I'm going to draw a painting and be Picasso. I've never painted in my life. Right? You would say, Kate, that's a little aggressive as far as an expectation. Like, hopefully you can draw a circle. Okay, well, we could start there. You know, maybe I can make a sunset out of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I'll get better at drawing it if I keep practicing. But it's like you guys don't even give yourselves permission to find out and suck at something and then see how good you can get at it. Like, that's fun for me. When I don't know something or I'm not good at something, I want to get better at it. That's it. I just want to get better. I want to see how good I can get at something. That's it. And I think that if you just walk in the door going, okay, well, I've never actually committed to dieting. I've never really committed to training. And I'm not exactly sure what type of cardio I should be doing, but whatever I'm told to do, I'm going to commit to doing it and finding out how good I can get at this thing. And that's it. And if you focus on the right things, like hitting your numbers, incorporating good habits, fueling yourself with whole micronutrient dense foods, being flexible where it's necessary and warranted, getting plenty of sleep, staying hydrated, getting moving, right? And enjoying your fucking life and being positive about the small incremental processes and improvements that you make on a daily basis, you're going to look back in 6 months and be like, holy shit, I did that? That was me? I started there? I don't even remember that person, right? And it's also very hard for you to be objective about your own progress when you look at yourself every day. Of course, it feels like nothing's happening. You see you every day.
I love that. That is such a great way to tie it all up, really. But to, I guess, put the bow on the package that you literally just tightly wound up perfect. The podcast, like the thing I loved most about that part is it's not just a circle, and it's not just it's not just going to the gym once. It's not just trying to learn how to deadlift. It's not just doing a body weight squat. Like, what if it could be something greater, like a sunset? And that was the part I loved the most. And I guess to sum it up, that feeds into the it's just a circle, I suck, fixed mindset. You can kind of tie this into how to go about the growth mindset and how that relates to pretty much the whole conversation that we just had.
Yeah, you have no idea what beautiful piece of art that you could be constructing because you're looking at it like a fucking line on a piece of paper. Right? It's like when people built Rome, they just laid a fucking brick. Did they know it was going to be a Roman Empire, like that beautiful structure? Like, no. They're like, I just know that I'm supposed to show up and lay this fucking brick like this. And they do it every day, multiple times a day. And they get better at doing it. And all of a sudden, you're like, holy shit, there's a wall there. And like, that's the same exact thing. It's like, you don't, especially people like growing muscle, they think it's supposed to do it the same rate fat loss happens. I'm like, no, imagine painting your house. It fucking sucks, right? You put in a lot of effort, your arm's hurting, you're fucking rolling the wall over and over again. And then you got to wait for that very fine layer of paint to dry. And then you do another fucking layer. That's like growing tissue. It's this very fine thing that's so fucking thin, you can't actually see when you acquire new tissue. But over enough period of time, you're going to see it happen. And so if you stop focusing on all of the things that you can just see and start seeing what changes are happening in here and the habits that you're forming and the one thing that you're doing every day that gets you just a little bit better, you're going to look back and be like, holy shit, look at what I did. Look at what I built. That's the coolest thing is when you see you built your glutes and your hamstrings or whatever it is you want to build and you're like, holy shit, now I have an ass. It's fucking awesome. Like, yeah, it is. Go flaunt that shit in the bikini that you've been holding in your closet forever. Right? But you can't expect to just get there in like your first shot even. So just enjoy the process. And I know when people say that, like, enjoy the process, trust the process. And people are like, oh, if your coach says trust the process, like there's so many conflicting opinions. It's a combination of both. You should understand what the process looks like and enjoy and trust it if you trust the person that you're working with. And they outline the process transparently. So there's context and nuance to everything. But now I'm rambling. What I'm trying to say is you are capable of creating so many fucking cool things. But you just have to give yourself permission to draw a circle once.
Yeah,
See
and
what
sometimes
happens.
on the process note, sometimes there is really no way that we can outline the process to the fine details that you want it to, and there's no way that you can either because you're a human, and humans are dynamic, and we can't really predict what's going to happen in your life in a week from now, let alone a month from now. And sometimes you can get to a point where you're trying to be too scientific with something and trying to know all the nuances of every single little thing that you're still not experiencing the process, and you're never going to allow yourself to soar because you're being so adamant on making sure that you know exactly what friggin' test tube to put exactly how many bloody 0.00 millimeters of the same friggin' solution to it.
So I want to say this, and I'm going to try to keep this short. You would think that fat loss is the most complicated fucking thing in the world nowadays. You have experts talking about so many contradicting things, and they want to get so niche and so deep on one context and make it super fucking complicated for everybody. No wonder you don't know what to believe. And everybody wants to use verbiage that's over your head, and you're like, oh, they used a really big scientific word. They must know what they're talking about. If someone has mastered something, they will tell you what they did. An expert will tell you what you should do, and they will dumb it down to a 5-year-old's level. And so, like, one of my best friends, Jordan Syatt, people make fun of him all the time, and they're like, oh, all he says is calorie deficit. Because the majority of the people need to understand how to consistently incorporate a calorie deficit for a long enough period of time and be consistent with that. Right? They are focused on, oh, it's my hormones, oh, it's my age, oh, it's this or that. Like, no, it's not. You are just very inconsistent, and you give up after 48 hours. And you're tracking your food wrong. So you're not actually in a deficit.
Or you've been dieting your whole life and you haven't given yourself enough time to get out of chasing calories.
I mean, there's so many different nuances and contexts to it, but it's, again, like an expert can make it so simple that a 5-year-old can understand it. And so if you are on the internet and you're reading all these very complicated topics, one, you have to ask yourself, does this even apply to me? Have I tried fat loss consistently over time? Am I tracking everything accurately? Have I eaten in a surplus for a long enough period of time to make sure my metabolism is not so low? Because some people say that they're restricting when they've been restricting for a decade. And it's not that they aren't, no, it is. It's actually that you're not in a calorie deficit because your metabolism is so suppressed that for you to be in a deficit, you have to eat 500 calories a day. That's ridiculous. You would die or starve. Either way, like it would not be well. And so it's like, is the context real for me? Or do I have all of these adaptations because I've been a chronic dieter for the majority of my life? So like incorporating calorie deficit is actually incredibly difficult. And it's always context and nuance to things, but like just focus on the big picture and the fundamentals of fat loss. If you can focus on the fundamentals and execute those consistently over time and you're in a healthy body, you will be just fine.
I love that. It's not as complicated as it seems. And I guess the message to sum all that up with is not every message is for you. And until you can zoom the fuck out and challenge your beliefs, face them head on, as you said, and challenge every single negative thought that comes into your head, get curious with it, then you are allowing yourself the ability to soar and see what you're capable of, not who you think others think you should be or who you want others to think you should be, but who you truly can thrive as and who you need to show up as for yourself and for those you love, because you can't do that if you're keeping yourself under a shell. So with that, I'm going to put Kait's Instagram down below, and anything else you want to put down there?
You can put my podcast down there. You can put my Instagram down there. My website's got some good stuff on it. So feel free to check any of that stuff out. And obviously, if you guys enjoyed this, let me know. And I would love to be able to provide any value that you guys need. I know that limiting beliefs are hard. I know that sitting with yourself and acknowledging the way that you actually think or the things that you believe about yourself it can be dark and hard, and but it can also be very empowering. And so when you are going through that stuff, if you feel negative, I would encourage you to look at it from a different lens, because on the other side of self-awareness is opportunity for growth. But you cannot acknowledge that you have the potential to grow if you don't acknowledge the deficit. And the hardest part of that is the only way out is through. So with that, thank you for having me. And I hope you guys enjoyed.
Don't forget to share this to your stories and tag us, or even just let me know what you got from this podcast, because I honestly love screenshotting them, saving them, and even passing them on to Kait so she can see what you girls have said. And I'm actually going to put her Twitter down below as well, because
oh yeah,
it's as soon as you said that I can get help with the mindset stuff. Like, guys, her Twitter is where she puts the most real thoughts, so that will be down below. Go check that out before you check out anything else, because it's the best place to be.
Yeah, full send on every thought. I'll just walk and like go on rants and just be like, these are all of my thoughts right now. It's fine. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.